This is why a lot of the small town kids don't make it into college wrestling. And before I hurt anyone's feelings, I'm from a small town. It's not small anymore. Winsville's huge, been fastest growing school district in Missouri for years. But it was a smaller town when I was, like, there's 3 classes, class 2, class 3, class 4. I was class 3. So I'm from a pretty small town. And also, before I hurt your feelings, a famous college coach told me this. You would know who he is. One of the most famous coaches in the world. Conversation. He's like, the problem is that in some of these lesser wrestling states, you don't have to train year round and put a lot of time in to win state titles. You don't even have to be very good to win state titles in some of these states, especially the smaller town, like the class 1 and 2. Some states that are like not even tremendous wrestling states have 5 state champs in every weight class. He's like, there's some good guys there, but we're not going to notice them unless they go to the national tournaments. But there's this assumption, mom and dad and the kids sometimes, there's this assumption that, you know, if I'm a 3-time state champ and I'm class 2 in a non-wrestling state, famous college coaches are going to call me. I'm ready for a college scholarship. You know, where's the money? Where's the phone calls at? And they don't come. So your job, if you're from a small town, is to leave the small town. And you better go compete against some Iowa kids and Oklahoma kids and New York kids and Ohio kids and Pennsylvania kids and some of the top kids in Minnesota and the top kids in Missouri. Missouri's a tremendous wrestling state. Illinois, I mean, they win the Fargo title every year. Illinois, just 38 minutes that way. One of the toughest, top 2 wrestling states in America. Not Southern Illinois, you got to go up to Chicago. You should go up there. So don't be lulled to sleep thinking that just because you won a bunch of state titles from your small town, that all of a sudden that means the college coaches are going to be calling you and recruiting you. That does not mean. Now, that doesn't mean you can't compete against those guys, but you better prove it. The college recruiters, all the state tournaments are crammed like into 2 weekends, most of them. They're going to go to the Ohio State tournament. They're not going to go to South Carolina. They're not going to go to the South Dakota, North Dakota. They're not going to go to the Montana State tournament. They're not going to go to the Colorado State tournament. Most of them don't even go to Missouri. They're certainly not going to go to the Arkansas or Alabama State tournaments. They're not going to go. And if they do go to those tournaments, they're not watching Class 1. I'm just sorry. Unless your wrestler placed at top 15 at Super 32s, right? There's one of the top kids in America right now at Kentucky, right? They're going to watch him. But don't be lulled to sleep by thinking that just because you're winning a bunch of state titles from a small town in a non-wrestling area that you're going to get recruited, because you're not. You have to leave. That's number 1. You don't leave your small town because you have this assumption. Number 2, you probably don't have to put a lot of year-round time in. Some people say, well, I'm from a small town. If you don't do 3 sports, we won't have a football team. Not your problem. We won't even have a track team unless my son does 3 sports. So if he likes doing 3 sports, do 3 sports. If he likes track, do track. Yeah, but he really just wants to focus on wrestling. Then do it. Yeah, but I'm from a small town. We kind of have to. Not your problem. It's not your problem that your little town of 200 guys has a track team. That's not your job. If your kid plays football because a coach makes him, but he'd rather wrestle, say, thanks, coach, but I'm focused on this. But see, what happens is these kids who maybe are not extremely skilled in wrestling, they don't know they're not because they only compete in their little realm, their little small town state tournaments and stuff. And you have to understand that go to some of these big tournaments, you're probably going to get your butt kicked, and you're going to get serious when you come back home, and you're going to start putting more time in. So there's your reason right there. And like I said, a famous coach had that conversation with me, and he said this, he goes, but I can't say that. He's like, I cannot say that because I'm going to be hated by 60% of America. But it needs to be said, because I get calls all the time from moms and dads that they don't even have a clue. They're like, I didn't know. I just thought, you know what? The quarterback won 3 state titles and he got recruited to USC. Well, you know, wrestling's different. So that's the reason I wanted to put this out there. Good luck.